What's up, guys? Welcome into our new show that has a new name, All Tied Up. We did not go with Meet and Three. We did not go with Two Guys, One Meet. We went with All Tied Up, and we even got an incredible intro video with Jim Dunaway's foot in it. So he's going to be upset. There's a lot of money to be made in those foot picks nowadays. We're not going to get into that today. We are going to get into a little stock up, stock down fall camp edition. I'm your host, Chris Marler, joined by the lovely Clint Lamb. I think I'm going to go with lovely from now on. Vanna White's out of work now. I feel like you need to replace her. So we're going to try to make this a thing.
I just want to point out that you did a phenomenal job with some of these graphics. I did send a text that said, you know what, we're not going to be negative. Let's leave the stock down part out of it. Mm-hmm. Because there's not really, if you're stock down in a guy right now, people are going to run with it. It's like, okay, this guy's not going to turn into anything. He's definitely entering the transfer portal, all this, when really it's just, hey, compared to where we thought he'd be, he's not there yet.
Right.
We'll be able to do that during the season. This will be a weekly thing for us on the channel, but it'll be a lot easier when you're talking about a guy's performance. You can be a little bit more critical. People aren't going to get, go over the top with it or anything like that. So I said, hey, Chris, for now, let's just leave it as a stock up kind of thing and just be real positive. The guys who are trending.
Yeah.
Apparently your graphics didn't agree.
Very long-winded way to say that I didn't do my job right.
I tried to. I didn't want to stock down you too much. I wanted to stock up you a little bit.
Well, here's the thing. I'm out of my Wellbutrin, so I'm in just a negative state anyway. So we'll restock the meds.
Sure. Agrees.
Yeah. I hope there's at least 3 people that can identify with what I just said. Otherwise, it sounds very weird and sketchy. But I promise it's not. Speaking of weird and sketchy, we are back for our second show. They let us stay on air, which is wild to me. Because the first 38 seconds of that last show were, I got a phone call from my mother. She was like, "Did you mean to say all that?" And I was like, "I did." She's like, "That's what I feared. That is what I feared." So
the problem is we got by with it once. You just doubled down and did it again on this one to start.
I'm not giving up on my dream. Two Guys, One Meet is gonna take over the world. Anyway, seamless transition to DNC. Let's get into. Hold on, my phone is recording everything I'm saying, which can't be good. The government's watching and listening to us. Let's get into stock up, maybe a little stock down. I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna already break the rules with what we're talking about, because the whole point is guys who have had their stock go up during fall camp, and it's specifically for the roster. I'm gonna cheat a little bit, and I'm gonna give a shout out to Courtney Morgan. Stock way up from Courtney Morgan. Dude, this is going to sound stupid maybe to some people, especially people that have been around a football administration and in the administrative building for a while. I know this will sound dumb. I didn't even know that GM for college football was a thing until a couple of months ago. And the fact that general manager, director of football operations, director of player personnel has become such a huge focal point, which is important in this age of football, which is roster management, all the stuff they have to do from a recruiting standpoint, making sure all these things are orchestrated and not only I don't want to say legal, but they're within the parameters of what the NCAA is still allowing you to do, because the NCAA is somehow still around. On top of all the other stuff you have to do in terms of keeping an eye on the portal, making sure your roster isn't you don't have guys that are constantly looking at the portal and things like that. Courtney Morgan has come into Tuscaloosa, Alabama, from the opposite side of the country, which you could really say the opposite side of the world, considering what's going on in Seattle. I don't care how that sounds. They have done a tremendous job with this staff. It fires me up so much to have a guy like that in our corner and with our logo on his chest. Huge.
Well, I mean, first of all, he had an opportunity to go back to the West Coast, and with USC, they wanted him real bad. They weren't the only ones that wanted him. And he turned down opportunities to stay loyal to Kalen DeBoer, which I think is a pretty big theme. I'm not saying that every coach has been loyal. Obviously, Scott Huff decided to go to the NFL with Ryan Grubb, both the Seattle Seahawks. That made sense to me, because of you get rid of the recruiting aspect of your job. You get a lot more free time with your family.
Yeah.
Ryan Grubb, it took getting to stay on the West Coast where his family already was, not having to relocate, and getting rid of that recruiting aspect of your job for him to leave Kalen DeBoer. So the loyalty to DeBoer, I think, has been pretty important and pretty big. Players love playing for him. Coaches love coaching for him. And I think that is, as far as developing a culture, that's huge, and it explains why the guy's won everywhere he's been, because he's that way. But as far as Courtney Morgan's concerned, I mean, it is huge. I remember, my friend William Ming was going through the recruiting process.
William Ming.
Yeah, you remember that name?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, number 56, right?
Yeah. He would have made a great bandit in this defense, by the way. But he was going through the recruiting process. I remember sitting in Nick Saban's office with William and our dads and everything, and Saban was talking about just why he came to Alabama from Miami.
Yeah.
And the fact that, he got tired of every single day there was another player, it seemed like, in his office demanding more money.
Dude.
They felt disrespected. They were being paid as the third best cornerback in the league, and they need to be paid as the best. And he just got sick of that aspect, because he's like, that's not even my job. You need to go to him, right? I mean, so you need to be talking to him about that stuff. I coach you. That's it. And I help build the roster. But as far as money, not my realm. Don't come to me. But they trusted him. They had a better relationship with the coach, and they saw him every day than the GM. So they felt more comfortable going to the coach.
Yeah.
The reason that this is important on the college level is, when this whole NIL thing came up, and guys are probably going to be doing something very similar. We're already hearing stories about it happening.
You hear Gundy?
Yeah, absolutely. And so you've got kids coming in. It's either A, you are the guy they need to be talking to if you don't have a GM styled, person, or it's referring them to boosters. Hey, I'm not handling that, but let me go let you talk it out with our boosters. And it's like, that's the last person you want having these discussions with the players. So having someone be that middleman is so critical to college football right now. And there's nobody in college football who's doing it better than Courtney Morgan.
Dude, he got a raise within the first.
Months.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah.
Which, and a lot of people, Mick last night on the message board, he brought up, kind of wish we'd have seen him close out, get the hay in the barn with this current class before we did something like that. But I mean, he was being pursued before that ever even happened.
Yeah,
he helped get Ryan Williams on board. The transfer portal class helped with a lot of that. He's doing a great job right now. And you've got to reward the loyalty, because it can't be like, hey, thank you so much for turning down USC, who's offering you, similar kind of money in these other places.
And LA.
And LA, going back, to the West Coast. But we want you to sit and wait for a year before we pay you. We appreciate your loyalty, but we're not going to reward that right now. It's, hey, he had an opportunity to do those things. He wanted to be with you. You go ahead and reward him now, because that's what his market demands.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just trying my best not to make a slight comment or a jaded comment about my years of working with Saturday Down South with the whole race thing. But I mean, dude, here's the thing, man. You have to go. I feel like go out and get a guy like this. And the last thing I'll say about this specific position, what's really unique to college football, right? Like general manager, player, director, player person, all that kind of stuff. The one thing I've noticed more than anything, now that it's a prominent factor in the coaching staffs and the mainstay in this realm of college football, there's no window for it. Like the hiring window for this specific position, as we have seen, does not have any parameters around it. Like we talk about how crazy the college football cycle is for coaches now. Where it's like, hey, as soon as you're done in December, you got the portal opens, and if God forbid you're still competing, because then you got SEC championship, bowl season, maybe the playoff, all that kind of stuff, and then you go back into spring practice. The calendar is so demanding now, and there really isn't a window that I have seen since he's been here, and since the start of January, where you haven't seen people moving. South Carolina just hired Darren Ursher from Oregon. You've seen guys move at other positions as well. I think LSU just hired a guy in a similar role with just a different title. So being able to keep him, especially when you've done such a good job at dominating the West Coast and California recruiting this year, huge job. Good job by Greg Byrne.
What do you think? What USC was? Why do you think they were wanting him,
dude? I don't know. We haven't heard Lincoln Riley say that, and we're not going to. But Lincoln Riley has done a weird commitment this offseason of try. I tell you, he's gonna screw himself over, but the amount of thorn in the side, badgering he's doing to Kirby Smart, because Kirby Smart is not going to be outbid, and he's not, he is not going to lose to Lincoln Riley on or off the field. So that is my first one. Stock way up. Courtney Morgan making $825,000 for a job that, as far as I'm concerned, started 7 months ago.
I love it. And I at first, when you said I'm already breaking the rules or whatever, I was like, I thought that was going to go in a much different direction. So that's a great one. Love covering that. It's very topical for me.
What direction did you think it was going to go in, real quick?
Well, first of all, you said I'm going to break the rules. I just said let's not have any stock down. So I thought we were going to get negative off the bat.
Yeah.
Excuse me for making that assumption. I thought, okay,
Nick
here we go.
Still in my doghouse, retiring for the season started. Anyway, go ahead.
For me, stock up number one as far as fall camp, it's got to be Cole Adams, man. I mean, I don't think anybody has seen no one was expecting him to be running with the first team offense.
Yeah.
And granted, I'm not saying that he's going to be a starter in week one. I do think that's a possibility, though, which is why he's on this list in the first place. I mean, him and Ryan Williams have been running with Jeremy Bernard quite a bit with the first team. So if he's not a starter, you're going to see some Cole Adams. And considering we thought, okay, based off of comments that were made from the spring, the fact that he played pretty well in the spring, we probably are going to see a little bit of Cole Adams, but you're talking about trying to get Ron Williams onto the field. You're talking about trying to get Caleb Odom potentially on the field. Like from a fan's perspective, just, hey, how are you going to get these different guys? Emmanuel Henderson deserves a bigger role. You've got Prentice, you've got Bernard, you got Kendrick Law. So Cole Adams, while he was kind of generating some buzz, it's not like it came completely out of nowhere, but compared to these other guys, I would say he was viewed as like the 6th or 7th best option. Yeah. And so considering he's now potentially one of the top 3 and running with the starters, that's absolutely huge. I mean, he's a slot option. He's really good for your return game. You see the explosive traits. I don't think people realize he's not your Wes Welker.
They are not going to see that either. They're not. That is going to take a while for people to catch on to because he is a white.
Well, hopefully Ladd McConkey did enough for that style of player to have people believing that it's possible for others. Now, granted, I'm not saying he's going to play a bunch outside. I think he's going to be kind of more of a slot specific option, but he can be very effective working the intermediate parts of the field, the middle of the field, which is huge. He can create separation underneath, and he can create yardage after the catch. And I mean, I think he can win a little bit more vertically from the slot than I think people are realizing. And I think that maybe defenses might not realize exactly what he can do from that standpoint right now. So I'm really excited to see how he emerges and really how he fits into this wide receiver room, because it's a really interesting, intriguing group.
Yeah, no, I think that's not what I would have opened with. So I love the fact that you did, because it's a little bit kind of off the beaten path. Listen, I will always say what's on my mind on this show. And if you ask me a question, I will give you an answer. So our audience is going to learn that pretty quickly. And I'll probably say a lot of things that Clint is too professional not to say. But bottom line, when you have a receiver that looks the way that he does, you are going to be, I think, constantly overlooked, whether it's fair or not. Because, dude, Ladd McConkey ran a 4.3, right? Like, Ladd McConkey was one of the best receivers in that draft last year. And I think that I hope this guy is overlooked and underestimated drastically all season long, because I do think that receiving core is going to eat no matter what, especially in this offense. But love the fact that you said, like, it's not a typical. I can't believe you threw out the Wes Welker thing. I will bet you right now, first bet of the year. I guarantee you, at some point within the first couple weeks that he's on the field, somebody will call him Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, Danny Amendola, or now Ladd McConkey. But
they're going to say that was a smart, tough run, tough gritty, after the catch, very gritty player.
Yeah, lunch pail guy. Also, son of a coach, all that kind of stuff. Okay, I'll go to my second one, and it is, if he's listening, just hear me out. And it's nothing you did to yourself. It's not your fault. One of my least favorite names phonetically on the entire list, on the entire roster, Wilkin Formby. Wilkin Formby, the offensive lineman. Here's what I like about it, because I think it was, to the casual Bama fan going into this year, I don't think he was super on the radar. I think a lot of people thought Elijah Pritchett was going to be the starter, and you saw last year, like, going into the season, that whole thing I brought up in the last episode, joyless murder ball. We have all these massive offensive linemen. Wilkin Formby is what, a redshirt freshman now? Yeah. So former 4-star recruit, right outside the top 100, a really, really good recruit. not really talked about a ton until this offseason. I love the fact that they're mixing things up in that unit specifically, because everything that I saw a year ago didn't live up to the hype at all. Like, it wasn't even close based on what we saw, even from our guy Tyler Booker going into the season a year ago versus what we saw on the field. I love the fact that this guy's competing for a starting job. It hasn't been, I don't think we're recording this on Tuesday, August 20th. And after everything we've heard from at least a couple of days ago in the scrimmage, they haven't solidified who the starter is going to be yet. Like, it's going to play out, I think, into the season. At the very least, this guy provides depth. And I'll tell you another thing as a cherry on top for this guy, because he's 6'7", 325. So the size is there. He can play outside and man down one of those positions. I don't think we're going to see this because Caden Proctor was the left tackle last year. But you've seen time before where you even had, like, you know, guys that were first-round draft picks that were playing right tackle at Bama, even though they were like massive, massive recruits. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen, but I know he's got the size to play on either side, whether it's left tackle or right tackle. And the other thing, and this is the petty in me, Clint, this is the petty in me. Do you know where he's from?
Yes, go ahead and tell the listeners.
Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You know, it's just nice to see an in-state recruit get some shine and all that.
Enjoy it while you can, man.
Yeah, because everything after
thing of the past.
Like, it is, as any real ball knower on Twitter will tell you, you got to have local guys if you're going to be successful. All jokes aside, I do love the fact that this guy is a local kid. Strictly in terms of he knows what it means to put on that jersey and wear Alabama across his chest. And I think that's an underrated thing that we don't always see now, especially since recruiting can be so national. I love that. I think he's really come on, not just in fall camp, but also, like you said, like in the spring. I'm excited for him. So I think the stock is way up for Wilkin Formby.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. Granted, he worked at right tackle a lot in the spring, and Elijah Pritchett worked at left tackle. But then you're 100% right. As soon as Caden Proctor made his announcement, or there was rumors that he was coming back to Tuscaloosa, the assumption was Elijah Pritchett will kick over to right tackle and Formby will go to the bench. And I didn't think that was very wise to assume at the time, because I really liked Wilkin Formby's upside. I love Elijah Pritchett's upside as well. But I thought, hey, I don't think we should completely rule out Formby, just because of this development. In fact, I mean, Elijah Pritchett has played pretty much his entire career at Alabama on the left side. He opened up fall camp on the left side because Caden Proctor had to earn it. But the fact that when Pritchett kicked back over to right tackle from, every time we've seen him in, warm up or in those, open practices, which are very limited. I mean, it's been Formby working with the ones. We've seen Pritchett obviously lining up with, Jaden Roberts and Parker Brailsford in like some photos. There's maybe been, I don't even know if there's been a clip that I've seen. If I have, then it's been a little while. Where Pritchett was working with the ones, but I did see at least one photo where he was. So I know that that's still a battle. No one has won, and Kalen DeBoer's even come out and said this is probably going to be a battle that even works into the season, and we're going to have to see what they do with some live game reps, because they're having such a hard time determining which one should start. Which is it's not because they're both playing poorly. They're both just playing really well and deserve a starting job. But there's only one spot available with Caden Proctor now manning the left tackle spot. So that's a good problem to have for your Alabama. For me, another stock up player, which, I had a hard time with this because, certain guys, it's not a surprising stock up. Cole Adams is shocking. That's why he was my first pick. But for LT Overton, who's my next selection, I think he's a stock up guy. Yeah. Was he on your list?
He was.
And he should be, because, a lot of people, granted, he was a former 5-star player. A lot of people thought when he transferred in from Texas A&M after having contributed to them for the last 2 years, he was going to be a part of this defense. He was going to have some sort of role. But I don't think anybody expected what we've been hearing about him throughout fall camp.
Yeah.
Jamarian Latham has been working with the first team probably the most, but we've seen or heard about LT Overton getting a lot of action with the first team, and he's been doing really good in all of the scrimmage-like settings. He's a consistent threat as far as applying pressure on the quarterback. He's a big body guy at 6'5", 283 pounds, can set a hard edge, can play that, 5-tech, 4-eye, anywhere on the tackle where, he can hold up from a body standpoint when he has to do that kind of stuff. And, it's crazy because you look at like Jamarian Latham, he's 6'3", 278. So he's 5 pounds lighter. Granted, he's 2 inches shorter, but just the body types, they're both really big guys. But I mean, Latham looks like a defensive tackle. He's not fat. He looks like a very muscled up defensive tackle, but it's just as crazy to see him playing out there on the edge. LT Overton looks like he is the prototypical bandit that you would want. 2-point stance, has the ability to do all the things that you would want out of that position, and he's got some juice, man. He can convert speed to power, which is exactly what you want for a 283-pound guy. But, first and foremost, you got to be able to help stop the run. That's, the purpose of having that size out there on the edge at bandit. But also, you really would prefer to have a guy who can also provide some complementary pass rush. And in some cases, if too much attention's going to the wolf or someone else, can be kind of your leading pass rusher and take advantage of that when they get their one-on-one opportunities. So that's what LT Overton brings to the table. I think fans should be thrilled about this guy. And while he might not start, I would fully expect him to be a part of the rotation, maybe coming in on passing downs. Either way, I think he's going to be a major part of the defense.
You know what I like about him the most? I think like that's overlooked the most with him. This is a guy that going into his junior year, he was in the initial class rankings, the #1 overall player in the country. And I remember that because I was living in Alpharetta, Georgia at the time, and it was Milton where he was playing there. The thing I like most about that kid, or not most, but one of the things I like most about that kid is this kid is not like impervious and shy from competition. Like Milton is one of the best programs, not only in the state of Georgia, but in like nationally from a high school football standpoint. And then the other thing is we make our Texas A&M jokes all the time because they got those weird milkman cheerleaders that doing all the finger guns and jazz hands and all that kind of stuff. But I will also say this, that defensive line unit especially from a recruiting standpoint is one of the deepest and most talented units we have seen in the SEC since maybe 2016 Bama, like in 2017 maybe. Like and I mean from a recruiting standpoint, there were 5 stars everywhere across the board. So I love the fact that he is not new to any sort of competition, and for him to stand out even with this group, which is that's saying a lot. I think coming into Alabama and being able to make that kind of impact right away. I'm going to give you one that's not. It's not really anything that he's like flash. It's a name really I haven't even heard like nearly enough. I think in fall camp. But I think that it's such a huge upgrade of the position, or can be. Upgrade's not the right word. Let me correct myself.
Okay. I think I know where you're going with this. I would say, don't do this, Chris. Yeah. Don't call him an upgrade.
Keon Sabb. Is that where you thought I was going with it?
No, I thought you were going to say Graham Nicholson, to be honest with you. But
no, I had that later, I think. But no, Keon Sabb. Keon Sabb is not Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs, I think, is one of the better freshman football players we have seen at the University of Alabama in a very, very long time. I'll give you an old name, pre-Saban, the kind of season he had like a Salim Rashid type year, his freshman year, where he was like a leader on the defense and a really, really good player on the defense. Sure tackler, very, very smart, very, very heady, all that kind of stuff. Keon Sabb is a guy that's only started 4 games in his first 2 years at Michigan. I don't know if Bama fans, even after watching the Rose Bowl, I don't think if Bama and SEC fans realize how good that Michigan defense was a year ago. Loaded with NFL talent, I remember my first deep dive I did going into that game, and I understand the offenses they played if you want to make an excuse for that. But you saw it in the Rose Bowl. That was one of the best defenses Alabama has played in quite some time, right? And they ranked at the top 5 nationally, like in over 20 different categories. Keon Sabb is a guy that he didn't get a ton of PT while he was up there in that offense or that defense last year, but when he did, it seems like it mattered most. Like you go up against Washington, who's going to throw the ball all over the field, right? With Kalen DeBoer. I love the fact that he was at his best in the biggest moment against Washington in the national championship game. And I think what he adds is like you lose Caleb Downs. It's not an upgrade by any means, because I think that while Sabb is good, former top 100 recruit, obviously going to be a strength of this defense in the back end. But him and Malachi Moore, now you even after losing the one of the best players maybe in the entire country in the portal, like a top 11 player in the country for ESPN top 100 players this year, top 11 in the country as a true sophomore, you still have one of the best safety tandems in the entire country because you have Keon Sabb coming down in the portal from Michigan, Alabama. I think that's so huge.
And this is one of the key guys that I'm talking about when I say, giving Courtney Morgan praise and Kalen DeBoer praise as far as the transfer portal and just the guys that they were able to close on, because Keon Sabb is going to be such a critical piece after losing Caleb Downs, who I completely agree with you. I think I know fans don't want to give him any praise right now because, and probably are never going to want to. But just, if I'm being completely unbiased, I'm removing the emotion from it. He's probably the most impressive freshman safety I've ever seen come through Alabama. You can see not just star power. I mean, it's like he's gonna be a top 10 pick to me. And if he's not, it's because you have like an offensive heavy, quarterback heavy first round that forces him to kind of fall out of the first round not the first round, but the top 10 when he never should have. But he is a top 10 safety talent all day, and that position has lost value on the NFL level. Mm-hmm. So when you've got it's not quite running back bad, but when you've got a guy who's projected or probably going to be a top 10 pick at that position, he is a special talent. But Sabb is a special talent, in my opinion, too, because he can kind of do everything well. Like, I go through and I watch him, and whether it be in high school or whether it be, the limited snaps at Michigan, which, there was, I want to say he played, roughly a little bit over 300 snaps maybe. So a pretty healthy amount. He's got enough experience there. He's played in some big time moments, but just at one point you're watching him, you're like, man, he's physical. Like, get this guy near the box, man. I think he could do a lot of really good things up near the box as far as the tackling. And, he's got really good size at 6'1", 206. I mean, at one point, Justin Jefferson was around that same size, right? I mean, so, put this guy in the box, let him go to work. And then you watch the range and the football IQ and the ball skills. And it's like, man, no, put this guy at free safety, play him as your single high, let him go, completely roam the deep parts of the field and go make plays. And it's like, you're talking about the same player. And that to me is kind of crazy. I think right now it seems like, based off of my understanding of Kane Womack's defense, it seems like he's playing the rover position. I'm seeing him near the line of scrimmage anytime we get a chance. A-Day, he was playing a ton. Malachi was the one playing the deep safety a lot. And then, on Fan Day, it just seems like he's always the one playing that rover spot. But I think they're very interchangeable as far as Malachi can play both, and so can he. But I think he's going to end up – I wouldn't be shocked at all if he ends up leading Alabama's team in interceptions, because you've seen in Kane Womack's defense, it's those positions that do get to play closer to the line of scrimmage where quarterbacks are having to make quick decisions based off of the disruptiveness of the defensive front. You've seen the Husky lead the team in interceptions. You've seen the Rover. And, it hadn't really been cornerbacks too much, hadn't been that, free safety necessarily. It's been kind of Husky and it's been Rovers. And so that kind of tells me, okay, with his ball skills and the opportunities that he's going to have, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he ends up leading the team in that category. So I really like the safety tandem too. I think that's really important. And while he is kind of where he's always been, as far as, he's kind of was lining up with the first team throughout the spring, has been doing it through fall camp, he still is a stock up guy that we need to be talking about, because he's not getting enough recognition.
Which maybe that's a good thing. Like, what I mean? Like, maybe the fact that we're not having to mention him at all is really, really good. I just think that it's a position also where you look at it like, thank God, because you lost 12 defensive backs to the portal or to transferring or to the NFL draft combined last year. I guess portal and transferring are the same thing, but sounded more dramatic the way I said it. But I mean, you lost 12 guys in that position, so I think it's a huge pickup.
I'll say this is how I'll put it for fans. I think Caleb Downs is the best safety that Alabama has had within the last 2 years, including last year and this year. But I think the tandem of Malachi Moore and Keon Sabb is better than the tandem of Jalen Key and Caleb Downs. So that's kind of, in a way to paint that picture. The next one for me, which, I mean, I have so many, and I don't know how many.
Well, we said 5, Clint.
I know, I don't even know what am I at now. I think this is number 3, right?
I think it's a 3, yeah.
So for me, the next one's Justin Jefferson. He's clearly trending in the right direction. you know me. I mean, anybody that paid attention to me last offseason knows I was a huge Justin Jefferson fan.
Yeah.
And, he was a JUCO player. Sometimes those guys really aren't supposed to take a lot of time to get acclimated to the game compared to freshmen. But sometimes it's just a guy ends up not being the impact player in year one as a JUCO player that you were hoping. And with the transfer portal, you can bring a Tresman Marshall in and some of those guys, and now they've got actual SEC experience. The JUCO experience factor doesn't play as much to an advantage as it used to. But, I mean, he's a guy who's been talked about as kind of being that third starter at linebacker, being viewed as the third starter at linebacker. I think he's going to be a part of the rotation. You look at Kane Womack and what he did at South Alabama. He had a three-man rotation at linebacker. He got all of those guys opportunities. And it's crazy with Jefferson to me because how much we all respect and how we view Deontay Lawson and Jihad Campbell. I think it's the best off-ball linebacker tandem, or one of them in the entire country. I think they're both first-round day one talents.
Think so, really?
I really do. Yeah. Now, Deontay Lawson feels like one of those guys because of the injuries. And, Campbell, with his versatility, I think just tremendous upside. I think, and the fact that he's only going into his junior year, only really has 1 year of experience.
Yeah.
I think the ceiling compared to Lawson is certainly there, probably a little bit more, but I love Lawson as well. And I think he's a modern day linebacker. And the fact that he's 6'2", 240 pounds now, he's got a lot of that sideline to sideline ability with him being a bigger body linebacker. Like typically you'll see guys who play like he does, and they'll be, 225, 220, kind of a Justin Jefferson type of size, even though Jefferson brings a completely different caliber of athletes to the table. But considering you have that kind of talent at the top of your depth chart, and we all knew they were going to be really good, barring health with their top two guys, there was concern at one point in time as far as the depth is concerned at inside linebacker or off-ball linebacker. And not only do I think Jefferson provides fantastic depth if something happens to either one of those two other guys, but I think that he's so good, or been so good, where he's going to get some opportunities in Alabama. Womack and those guys are going to be willing to take one of those potential first-round picks off the field at times to rotate in a guy like Justin Jefferson because of his skill set. He's a heat-seeking missile. The closing speed is every bit as elite. Okay, maybe not quite as elite, but I mean, as close as you could possibly get, in my opinion, to Reuben Foster or a Rashaan Evans. I mean, when he gets there, he arrives with authority. He's got, range as an off-ball linebacker. He's springy. He's fluid. Love Justin Jefferson. Think he's going to be a huge part of Alabama's defense, even if he's not a starter.
Dude, so here's the thing too, and I know we're in a different regime, and we've got different, head coach obviously, and also assistant coaches and coordinators and all that kind of stuff. You remember when Jihad Campbell didn't start last year, right? Yeah. Like it was.
He started off injured though.
Right. But I mean, like, it wasn't until Lawson got injured that he finally got in and got some like valuable playing time. Like was it the Ole Miss? What game was it where he came in one game? I think it was Ole Miss, because I think Lawson got hurt like the first quarter or something like that. And he ended up having like 13 tackles. And then you obviously see what he did against Tennessee. Like every time that kid was involved, every time that kid was involved, he was all over the field. And so if you can have some depth like that, like I think that's huge, right? Okay. I'm going to give you a cop-out, but it's for a good reason. I'm going to pair these guys together, even though we talked about them in the last episode already. Ryan Williams and Caleb Overton. Here's why I'm bringing them up, because one thing you will learn about me, guys, is that I get so in my head about Bama. I think it's like, I've objectively covered the SEC for about 7 or 8 years now. And I feel like I go out of my way to be as objective as possible, even though I grew up a diehard Alabama fan and my family is from Alabama. We had season tickets, all that kind of stuff. Try to be as objective as possible. Admittedly, I sometimes struggle, and you know this, Clint. I sometimes struggle with being as objective about Bama because I think I hedge emotionally so much that like something bad's about to happen. and it's just like something's about to, like, the other shoe's about to drop. Ryan Williams, I have been so hesitant to jump all on board. We're not going to talk about any of the takes that I've had and fear that I've had off air, because I'm going to sound like an idiot. This is stuff that me and you've talked about. But like, one of the reasons why I've been so hesitant on this because he's not super big. He's only 17. He came in a year early. I know he's a 5-star talent, but then you start looking at all the stuff that keeps coming out, like from like fall camp, especially. It's like, and all the quotes from the coaching staff, like that guy gets it. Like he is wise beyond his years. He's very smart, a high football IQ, all that kind of stuff. I think, I saw the other day he had like in the 2 scrimmages so far in fall camp, he's had over 100 total yards. But throw Caleb Odom in there as well. And here's why. Here's why I'm so hesitant on it. But I think I'm finally ready to just open myself up and think that both of these guys, like the stock is way, way up. This receiving core, like I keep saying, in this offense is going to eat no matter who is out there. You had all 3 guys that were in the starting rotation for Washington a year ago get drafted. The last few times since like 2021, Bama's had a freshman receiver, highly ranked freshman receiver. It's just resulted in pain for me. Like Ja'Cory Brooks is now with Louisville. It was fantastic what he was able to do against Auburn in the Bryce game and the 97-yard drive, all that kind of stuff, right? But like, there's just so many examples. Ajay Hall, for whatever reason, what was going on with that kid. Like, there are just examples. Like, I mean, Alabama brought in 4 top 100 guys that were on par, like from a recruiting standpoint, with the class. Then they had Judy and Devonta and Ruggs and whoever else. Like, you had 4 top 100 guys. Earl Little Jr., he's now at where? Is he at TCU or Georgia Tech? Christian Leary.
No, Christian Leary is at Georgia Tech.
Right.
Yeah.
So you had all these like very highly ranked guys. Adam Anderson or Aaron Anderson, whatever his name was, good now at LSU. There's just so many situations and so many examples of, man, that guy was supposed to come in right away because like there was going to be a drop off. Yeah, Malik Benson. And now, dude, our fourth and wrong pod with my co-host Tyler Huck. He's a diehard FSU guy. He's like, dude, Malik Benson, I don't know why you guys let him go. And I'm like, go look at his numbers from a year ago, man. We were very. He was in the starting lineup
all year. He had like 12 targets. He had like 21 targets all year.
Right, and just never came to fruition or stepped up anything like that. I hate to use the Michael Scott phrase because I don't think it's going to result in this, but I'm ready to be heard again. Like I think we have 2 freshman guys that are going to be really good in this offense, and so I know that it's a huge cop out to say either one of them. But I'm strictly doing it because the comparison over the past couple of years is like there just hasn't been a guy that's really stepped in that I can think of that has taken over or like lived up to the overwhelming expectations and hype at that position.
So your stock up is the freshman receivers because the freshman receivers in recent years haven't lived up to the billing, which makes a lot of sense.
Okay,
and I'll continue. I will continue to reiterate the difference right now to me is Jamarcus Shepard.
Yep.
Anytime someone brings this up, it's like that's Malik Benson's doing great things at FSU right now. He was a starter at Alabama. He couldn't do great things at Alabama. Why is that? I think offense limited things a little bit. I mean, I just think the limitations with Jalen Milroe, the limitations with Tommy Reese, and how he didn't really know how to utilize certain guys because he felt like he just seemed like a guy who's walking in every week viewing himself as handcuffed because he wanted really a quarterback that could, sling the ball all over the field and do different things and get a bunch of different guys involved. I get that all plays a part, but I also think it was a lack of development as far as the receivers. I really do. And Jamarcus Shepard's one of the best wide receiver developers in the entire country. So you mix that with an offense that's very good at highlighting guys' skills and building around certain guys' talents. And then you combine that with the just raw natural ability that Ron Williams has. I mean, just as far as being a dynamic playmaker with the ball in his hands, elite as far as run after the catch, absolutely elite. Vertical field stretcher, can play multiple spots inside and out. Plenty of ball winning ability for a guy who's, his size. I mean, it's kind of, Devontae Smith had some ball winning ability. I thought Jalen Waddle, for being as small as he was, he certainly had some ball winning ability. He could go up and get it a little bit. Ryan Williams brings that. And one of the things that makes him so special, in my opinion, compared to a lot of your other elite receivers, is like Jameson Williams had this ability where he understood that people respected his speed so much and defenses were so terrified of his speed that he could use that speed to manipulate defensive backs. And it would be like right before he was about to break off of a route, he would You would see a little bit more explosion when they think, okay, he's now hitting that second gear. He's definitely going vertical. And then he would be able to sit down immediately, and it would create all kinds of separation underneath.
Dude.
Guys who have that kind of speed typically can't separate underneath like Jameson Williams did. Ryan Williams has that ability to manipulate defensive backs, and he has an understanding of how to do it, which, you know, at his age was pretty remarkable. And I think that's a huge difference between him and anybody else that we've seen in recent years.
You remember, this is off topic, but I'm going to bring it up anyway because I hate Georgia. Don't clip that. But do you remember? I don't hate Georgia. I hate their fan base, and I don't care how that sounds. I will never apologize for that.
You'll be sucking up to them on Twitter later.
I just say objective things about their program. Don't start, Nick Perkins. Don't start. This is how it all begins. No, okay. So, like, you remember in the SEC championship game, it was like the go ball or whatever route. I don't know exactly what the route was because it wasn't a stop and go, but it was definitely a hesitation where Bryce hit him deep and hit JMO or whatever. And I think they had bracket coverage on him, and Keely Ringo was one of the guys on him. Keely Ringo, people forget, like, dude has elite size for a corner. Was also like a 4.3 guy out of high school. Like before his injuries and all that kind of stuff, he was like a 4.3 dude. But if you remember the route that JMO ran, he like decelerated and then re-accelerated in the middle of the route. And Bryce obviously threw a perfect ball, but he was able to beat bracket coverage on it. I remember Gary Danielson just being like, "Oh my God," it was incredible. You know, it reminded me me of that in the 2012 game where Bama beat Georgia again, and Amari Cooper on the go-ahead touchdown. You could see him kind of slow down as the ball was in the air, and then re-accelerate on the ball because AJ, I don't think he underthrew it, but he threw about as far as he could for the go-ahead score. Anyway.
What's man? Now I'm drawing a blank on the name, and I don't know why. It wasn't 2 seconds ago. The receiver for Tennessee that got drafted by the Giants, Jalen Hyatt.
Jalen Hyatt, yeah.
You know, he's like rare vertical speed, rare vertical ability, but he is one of those players. He didn't know how to do that, like Jameson Williams, and what I think Ryan Williams has that ability, which is, you know, teams respected his speed so much, but he couldn't make you pay for that on his own. You know, offensively, you could make people pay for it because they would be expecting that, and you could do different things to exploit the fact that they were assuming, you know, hey, we can't get beat on the explosive downfield play. But with, you know, a guy like Jameson Williams and potentially Ryan Williams, they can exploit that on their own because they have the ability to, like I said, manipulate you as a defensive back. You're already scared or anticipating the vertical route and making sure you don't get beat on that. Yeah. And they can sell that on, you know, that route on you and then break off their route, and they are wide open.
Right.
And it's such a silky smooth way of playing the game that I think, you know, very few receivers, even your top receivers, do not have that ability. And we still have to see Ryan Williams develop, or, you know, everything else. And he certainly seems like he's developing everything else, but I'm one of those guys where I have to see it to an extent, but if you're trying to anticipate, I mean, it seems like he's going to be able to just completely take the college football world by storm because he has such, you know, rare ability.
Well, I tell you what, we don't play Ole Miss this year, or Bama doesn't play Ole Miss this year. My whole objective thing, I probably shouldn't say we, but Bama doesn't play Ole Miss this year. But if you're talking in comparing him to Jalen Hyatt at all, you know, that sounds like to me, all you got to do is figure out a way to put Ryan Williams on a safety, and Pete Golding will be absolutely just bewildered. He'll have no idea how to stop that for 60 effing minutes.
To be fair, to be fair, and this is something that ends up happening. It was Tennessee's ability to run the football. They were letting Alabama pick their own poison.
I'm not reliving this moment with you.
They were trying to
cheat. My piece.
They were trying to cheat DeMarco Hellams up as much as they could because they were struggling to stop the run. They wanted to have numbers as close to the line of scrimmage as possible. But the problem is you just let them nickel and dime you to death with, you know, 6-7 yards of carry and just death by 1,000 cuts rather than the explosive 5 touchdown
I'm high enough to where it will hurt on impact. I will jump off this balcony in Fort Lauderdale.
I'm just telling you what happened. It was they knew they could have stopped Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah.
They could have. It wasn't that they didn't. They were trying to figure out a way to stop both. And with that type of offense, with Hendon Hooker, the strain that he put on you with his legs, the fact that he could, you know, you had big body targets on the outside. it was, and you had two running backs, a good offensive line, two running backs who were absolutely hammering you, and pretty much, I'm just saying it was a tough call.
Who's up?
I would have gone in a different direction personally. I'd have said, you know what, run all over me, embarrass my run defense. Yeah. It's at least going to take you a little longer to get down there. But they just decided to turn it into a track meet, and it didn't work. But there was reasons behind it. Did you go last? I think you went. You went last.
I mean,
right?
You don't deserve to go again after reliving the worst game that a lot of us have had to endure for a long time. I will say that I'm on 20% on this battery, so we gotta
wrap it up. Yeah,
we gotta wrap it up.
Okay, soon. Well, I'll say
I have one more, and that's it.
Okay, I'll do one more as well. And for me, it's not starting. But I want to give Rock Montgomery credit. I think he's a stock up kind of guy because, is he going to be in the starting lineup? No. Is he going to be the first guy off the bench as far as the interior offensive line? No, that's going to be Geno Vandermark. But anytime you've seen, we have seen Tyler Booker and Jaden Roberts, they were held out for different reasons at different times. Rock Montgomery continues to kind of be that next guy up there. And he's been playing center. He's been playing right guard. I'm sure he could probably play left guard too. So he's got the versatility to play all three spots, but give him a lot of credit. Because when you look at him, I mean, Caden Proctor, Wilkin Formby, Olasa Lennon, Miles McVay, Casey Poe, William Sanders, all these guys were ranked ahead of him. Out of the last two high school recruiting classes with the offensive line, I think there's been a total of 8 guys. Only one has ranked lower than 3-star, Rock Montgomery, and that was Joe Spionata. And, with Rock being a 3-star guy, with all this other talent they brought in with the offensive line, I think he was kind of viewed as, it's great to get him. Georgia certainly wanted him. That's good. We got him, a Georgia guy. But I don't know if anybody had the expectations that he would be where he's at right now in year 2. And that is not in the position to start. But he's clearly, he's ahead of a Lennon. He's ahead of Poe. Some really, really good players on the interior. And so I want to give him credit because I have noticed it. I didn't give him enough respect when it came to like the depth chart projections. And I want to start giving him that respect starting by highlighting him here.
All right. Well, we'll close with this, and it's my last one, and I think it's a perfect transition into what you said, giving some respect. I think when all is said and done, this quarterback situation that we have in Alabama right now with Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe has become one of my favorite players in recent memory at Alabama. Just the stick-to-itiveness, for lack of better words, of what he's been able to do and all the crap he had to listen to from our own fan base, as well as from around the country a year ago. And I think that he has shown time and time again that he is going to be and already is a very, very good receiver. But the guy I want to give a shout-out to in terms of the stock-up thing.
Wait, who are you talking about?
Ty Simpson now.
Wait,
I was talking about Jalen Milroe.
You just called him he's going to be a really good receiver.
I did not say that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you said that. I'm like 90%.
Not what I meant at all.
Good job. Now you're in trouble, man.
I've been up since 7 a.m. I'm not used to this stupid adult life that I have to.
Yeah, everybody. Now we know how Chris really feels.
Yes. Okay. So here's the thing. Now I don't even start. He's a good running back, brother. He's one of the best running backs we got. God, I hate when people say that. Sorry. Anyway, so back to focusing. This is you screwed me over here with the ADD stuff. Ty Simpson. I think when you look at a guy like Ty Simpson, it's such a unique situation they've put in. He has put himself in, and that the university and like that quarterback room has also been in. Because, man, in this day and age of football, in the portal, and especially with that specific position, you've heard it over and over and over again. The guy, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now for some reason. Head coach at Nebraska.
Matt
Rule. He brought this up a while back, and he was like, it costs about $1 million to $1.5 million to get a quarterback in the portal at this point. Ty Simpson's a former 5-star recruit, right? Like Ty Simpson is a very, very highly ranked recruit coming out. A lot of people thought he was going to be the starter. I think a year ago, I remember a lot of people thought he was going to probably take over seamlessly after Bryce left. And I get it. It kind of takes me back to 2014 for a number of reasons where people thought Jake Coker was going to come in and be a starter right away and all that kind of stuff over Blake Sims. But Jalen Milroe is your starting quarterback. The fact that Ty's quarterback Ty Simpson has gone from this, like, I fully expected him to leave, to be honest. Fully expected him to leave and transfer out. You bring in the kid from Washington. You have obviously a returning starter at quarterback that was not just a returning starter, the returning Heisman and leading vote getter for the Heisman Trophy in all of college football from a year ago in Jalen Milroe. I know that idiots like Paul Feinbaum, love you to death, Paul, if you're listening. Can't wait to be on the show again. But idiots like Paul Feinbaum who are saying dumb crap about Ty Simpson and like how, well, I don't think he's as good as Arch Manning because Arch Manning made such and such and is so marketable in his last name. But like, it is the dumbest crap. Ty Simpson staying and developing, and you hear coaches talk about him now where it's like, dude, this guy, they probably don't open with dude, but this guy is we feel comfortable that he could go out there and start a game and win a game for us if something happened in Milroe and we had to be in a pinch. And we've seen this happen the last 2 years. Like, listen, Milroe had to come in against Arkansas and start against A&M when Bryce got hurt. Last year, you had the debacle in South Florida, down there in Tampa, when for whatever reason Tyler Buckner decided they started him, and it was atrocious. Like, that has not been something that Bama's had necessarily the past 2 years, even though they were able to win those games. Feeling comfortable that you can still run the offense with your backup, Austin Mack, like Ty Simpson, Jalen Milroe, Lonergan, you now have what has become a huge question mark to casual fans and idiots from around the country who aren't sold on Jalen Milroe, who, like me, did think that Ty Simpson was going to probably transfer out. You went from having like, oh my God, what are they going to do at quarterback to this is arguably the deepest and one of the best quarterback rooms in the entire country. And that is so huge going into a season where now, let's remember this, Clint, like, you're going to play 12 regular season games. You hope you get to Atlanta. That'd be 13. If you lose in Atlanta, or if you don't make it to Atlanta, but you still make the playoff, you're talking about like a potential 16-game season. Like, we are in a new era of college football. That's like I said, it's expanded playoffs, all that kind of stuff. You need to be as deep as possible, as many positions as possible. And I love the fact that Ty Simpson has just done nothing but continue to learn and grow and develop all that kind of stuff, made himself some money with NIL. I think it's just, when all is said and done, that's a guy that I think Bama fans are going to universally tip their cap to him and like, thank you for your service, Ty Simpson.
To further your point about the importance of Ty Simpson,
even if I made one,
it's not just the last couple of years. Alabama 2020. Okay, so 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So 7 years. One time in the last 7 years, Alabama has started the same quarterback for every single, or I would say started, but they have not had to go to their second string, had to go. It was all in mop-up duty and things like that. But you look at 2017, Tua comes in for Jalen in the second half of the national championship. 2018, Jalen comes in for Tua because he gets hurt in the second half of the SEC championship. 2019, Tua gets hurt, Mac Jones comes in. 2020, it's all Mac Jones. But then 2021, I guess 2021 too. Bryce played every game that year, so it's 2 of the last 7. Excuse me. But that's still 5 of the last 7 years. 2022, 2023. Now, 2023, some people will say that was self-inflicted, but it was more of, you weren't getting the play out of Jalen Milroe that you needed, so you were forced to turn to somebody else. For one reason or another, Alabama has had to turn to another quarterback through injury or poor play in 5 of the last 7 years. That tells you exactly how important the backup position is. And I will say it's kind of like fans felt pretty good. Well, I don't even know if they felt really good about Mac Jones when they had to turn to him in 2019. He ended up playing really well, and I will defend his Iron Bowl performance from now until the end of time. He made one terrible throw. One of them was fluky. I will never blame that on him. It could have been anybody.
Now he's trying to catch the ball behind his back.
Otherwise, yeah, I mean, he is a big reason why Alabama lost that game. I won't take that away, but I would say for a guy going into Jordan-Hare Stadium against that defensive front with Derek Brown and Marlon Davison and all those guys, I thought he played.
Defense couldn't stop anybody.
Yeah, so I mean, he definitely contributed to the loss, but I think he played good enough to win. It's just he made 2 critical. He had 2 critical mistakes. One was forced. One was fluky. So, anyways. Obviously when Tua came in for Jalen in the national championship, people felt good about that. Obviously, when I will never forget in the 2018 SEC championship when Jalen came in for Tua, I was sitting in the press box. I was thinking it was just going to be this air let out of the stadium.
Yeah.
Jalen starts jogging out there. And even though we were in the press box with the glass, you could feel the crowd completely erupt.
It was like 3rd and 11. Like his first throw was on 3rd and 11 to Irv Smith.
And I remember thinking to myself, okay, based off of what he just got, if as a quarterback and as a player, I bet he can feed off of that energy. It was incredible. The faith they had in him, when really the last time they had seen him extensively was the first half of that national championship game where he did not play good football. It was like, and he ended up doing exactly that. I think he took that momentum, he carried it, whatever. But yeah, Ty Simpson's really important. And I think Alabama being in really good shape at the quarterback position is a bit, whether it be from top of the depth chart with Jalen or working your way down it. I think that's a major reason they're going to be in the college football playoff hunt and the national championship hunt. So yeah. All right, man. Let's wrap it up. All tied up here.
Tied up. That's a Gretchen Wilson song, kind of.
Go ahead.
Anyway, that should be. Listen, if we didn't already sign our souls over to Jim Dunaway's feet on the intro, we would definitely have splurged a little bit for the Gretchen Wilson soundtrack as well. Appreciate everybody joining us. I hope this was. But honestly, listen. Besides your little. We're allowed to cuss on here, right? Besides your,
sure, go for it.
Besides your bullshit trip down memory lane for the Tennessee game 2 years ago, this was a lot of fun.
Okay, so, I'm not the one that called Jalen a wide receiver, so
that's fair. No, we appreciate you guys joining us. I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of your afternoon. Man, we are in single-digit days, I believe, coming down to college football season, and also Alabama football. So I cannot wait. Should be a lot of fun. We will be back on what day? Friday?
Yes. Because there's games to pick this weekend.
Yeah.
So absolutely we'll be back. We'll be doing the college football picks on Friday. That'll be actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of see what happens from there. But Chris, appreciate you, brother. This has been fun. We'll do this again. And you're not allowed to bring up the old name again in any future episodes.
Okay.
Of the show. You've been banned. All right.
All right.
We'll talk to you guys next time. If you haven't already, go sign up at covercrimson.com. Only $1 for the first month. And like this video, subscribe to the channel. Liking the video is great. Commenting is fantastic.
Yeah.
But nothing helps us more than subscribing. Please go subscribe. We're building this channel into the best Alabama channel on YouTube, period. We need y'all's help to do that, and we appreciate y'all for doing that. All right, Chris. We'll see you soon.
See you, brother.